I met her close to a school here in Pasadena, Pasadena High School. We'd go down there for the kids to play ball, and she's been playing shortstop one time on a girls' team, and I kind of thought she was pretty. So that night I asked her if she wanted to go get a Coke, and after that, 3 months later, we got married. My name is Clovis Mavis Brotherton.
My name is Jessie Mae Eaton Brotherton.
I was born in 1919, May the 9th, 1919, out in the country about 5 miles out of Jewett, where there was a lot of grass burrs and bull nettles.
I was born December the 1st, 1927. I was born in Leggett, Texas. That's in Polk County.
You know what a bull nettle is? It will sting you fool out of you. They have little button things on them that you can get and break open and eat, but they sure will bite you. Grass burrs. That's well, it's something that you don't want.
Oh, I think memories of having a house full of kids. Had 5 brothers and 1 sister. My oldest brother is Earl. Then there was me, and then there was my brother Alton, and he passed away in 1989, I believe it was. Then there was Doris, my sister, and Paul, and Jack and Ted.
I have 2 sisters. Opal was the oldest, and then Inez was the next girl. And then I had a brother named Joe. Pete was my brother. His name was William Irk. Everybody called him Pete. And then it was me, and we had a little brother named Troy.
Well, I guess I remember them as being hard-working and not having very much money, but working hard and taking care of a big family. And they showed us a lot of love, and that was important. They took us to church, or a lot of times we walked to church because we didn't always have a car, and that's the good memories.
My daddy's name was Ernest, William Ernest. My mother's name was Jewel. They were very hard-working. Daddy was very hard-working, and he was the boss. We lived out on this farm. I guess he called it Spring Hill. You go down the hill, and there's a creek come along there, and you go up the hill. I walked 2 miles to a little country school. Back in those days, 11th grade was the last grade, but I rode an old Jenny to school, a donkey. It had to stay tied to a tree all day long out in the weather, and she'd be writ if it's rainy weather, we'd get on and ride her home, and I'd always get me something to eat when I got home. I'd take a cold biscuit and take my finger and punch a hole in it and pour a little syrup in it. I don't know if you know what syrup is or not, but it's good.
He liked to eat with a knife, and he could just get peas on that knife and just, put them in his mouth. I think he did it a lot to entertain the grandkids, if you really want to know. He also liked to pour his coffee in the saucer and drink his coffee from the saucer. Another thing he liked to do was take his false teeth out. It was entertaining. They all loved Granddad. My dad's name was Jesse Earl Eaton, and it's not hard to figure out that I was named after my dad, and I thought that was an honor because I loved my dad. He was a very kind, caring young man, and he had nicknames for everybody. And my nickname was Little Honey, and he called me Little Honey all my life. And I thought that was pretty special. He had nicknames for all of them, but mine was the best.
I don't know. That's the first thing I thought, but I thought it's pretty easy to look at. She was pretty. It wasn't bad, but I was with her just about every night. I didn't know whether the family liked me or not, but I really didn't care, because she did. And I remember they had this little boy named Ted. I remember seeing him out in the front yard. He's picking up cigarette butts, and he'd smoke one every once in a while.
We didn't talk to each other, but we saw each other at church. Clovis's sister went to church, and it was Memorial Baptist, and I sang in the choir. And I think he had looked around at all the young ladies and had seen me in the choir, and he also played on the men's softball team, and I played on the girls softball team. And we were practicing one day, and that's when he first asked me if I wanted to go get a coat. He had been in the service and had gotten out of the service, and everybody thought he was so handsome. He had this Brotherton smile that just went all over his face. He has a grandson that has a smile like that now. His name's Bo.
Pop, can I see that smile? What is she talking about? What's that Brotherton smile?
I can laugh out loud if you want me to.
Well, it was a very simple wedding, but it was very meaningful. It was religious. It was in the church. October the 8th, 1948. My sister stood with me, and Clovis's brother Joe stood with him. We had Brother H.D. Hale was our pastor, and he married us, and it was a very simple wedding, and we had a reception at my parents' home. We thought it was real nice. It wasn't fancy. We didn't. I didn't have a long wedding dress, but I had a white dress and all, and it was. We thought it was just great.
That was about 60 years ago, and we're still together.
We went to Corpus Christi on our honeymoon, and Clovis had this car, and anyhow we stayed at a motel, and it was in October, and it was a little bit cool, so we didn't swim or anything like that, but we did walk along the beach. And every afternoon, Clovis would kind of disappear, and come to find out, he would go to the car. They didn't have radios in the motel rooms then, or TVs, and he'd go to the car to listen to the World Series.
So, wait. Pop, this was on your honeymoon?
Yeah.
And you went and did what?
I went to the car and listened to the radio to a ball game.
Well, it certainly did limit the things we could do, but we enjoyed being parents, and so it was good. Well, Terry was the oldest, and he was born November the 19th, 1950. Our second son was born January the 19th, 1952. And then our daughter...
That was your dad, Larry.
Yeah, Larry. And then our daughter, Pam, was born March the 9th, 1955. And then Charlie, our youngest one, was born October the 31st, 1961.
And Pamela was, she was pretty fiery. She'd cry every night. She'd cry. And we got her sleeping in the room with Terry and Larry, and she never cried anymore. We talk about to the kids about their little brother going to be born. His name was Charlie. Now, they all named him.
But everything that came out, they'd call it Charlie. There was a mother possum. We lived on Young Road, and there was a mother possum that had a possum inside her pouch. And they called that little possum Charlie. And there was a dog that came up, and they called the dog Charlie. And seemed like Mr. Brotherton used to have a horse, and the horse's name was Charlie. So it just seemed like Charlie would be the name for our last son. And it fit him. His name is Charles, but he's always been called Charlie.
Some of the best memories, I always wanted to be ball players. It was a ball game. I was working from early in the morning till late in the afternoon, but I'd take off in time to watch the ball games. And Terry was a good ball player. Larry was a good ball player. Charlie was. Charlie was a real good basketball player.
She didn't need much protection. She was kind of a tomboyish, and she could outdo them on a lot of things, and that didn't make her too popular with them. She was pretty feisty, and she liked horses. Terry used to show horses in the 4-H, but Larry never did like horses much. He called them beasts. And Charlie really didn't care for them, especially if he had to feed them. It was a great feeling. And the best thing about being a grandparent, you can enjoy the grandchildren and then you can send them home. We loved to take our grandchildren to the lake, and we had a station wagon, and your grandfather never was much on stopping along the way, so I would always fix something for them to eat and drink on the way, and they couldn't hardly get started till it was time to bring out the goodies. When they got bigger, they had this jet ski, and they liked to swim in the lake, and one time the lake was down and they just loved playing in the mud, and we took pictures and everything of them playing in the mud. It was as much fun as playing in the water. The oldest one is Chasen. Chasen was Larry's oldest son, and we got to spend a lot of time with Chasen. We'd go pick him up every other weekend at Waller, and we had some good times visiting with him, and we've always been real close to him. The next one was Charlie, or Charles Martin, and that's Larry's second son, and his mother's Tammy. And Charlie was the funniest little boy. One thing I remember about him, when Michael Jackson was doing this slide thing, and boy, he could dance better than Michael Jackson, and he was always a lot of fun. The next one was Derek. His parents were Terry and Karen. One time they were up there, and there was Chad and Derek and Bo were there, and they were having some kind of playing, and they were hiding from Chad, and Chad just ran away or something and scared me to death. Then the next one was Bo, and what I remember about Bo is that he liked certain things, and if he didn't like it, he'd say, "I hate that." Chad was his parents were Charlie and Jamie, and Chad and Bo were great friends, and we would take them to Walmart and give them some money, and the other boys would buy toys or something to play with, and Chad would find a book that he wanted and buy a book. And we just thought he was so smart, and he would use big words. And one time Bo said, "Chad, why don't you talk regular talk?" And then the next one was Chelsea, and we were real proud to get a granddaughter, and we thought she was so special. And when Chelsea and Cameron would come to the lake with us, they would sing. Chelsea would sing all the way up there, and we just thought she has a future singing because she had such a beautiful voice. And Cameron would move his lips like he was singing, and I'd say, "Well, Cameron, we can't hear you." And he said, "No, I'm not singing, I'm just mouthing it." A great granddaughter, and her name is Haley. I think that she's a born leader because when her friends come over, she's the one that tells them what they're gonna do, and gives the instructions to everybody. Our children, we have 3 fine sons, and we're proud of them. The greatest tragedy in our life was losing our daughter in 1985, and then we lost our grandson, Chad, in 1999. And those are things you never get over. But we're just thankful that we had good memories and of them. And the greatest accomplishment is our children. Well, I think it's made you depend on God, and to thank Him for being with you and giving you the strength to get over it, and giving you hope that this isn't all of our life, that we have eternal life. I guess the most important is that to trust in God, and to when you get married, to trust your mate, and
We've never had any problem there.
and put each other first, and don't be afraid to say I'm sorry, and always say I love you, and most of all to stay true to God. I just think we've been blessed beyond measure.
With good health and love for each other.
And for a good family, and that's just a great blessing, and we thank God every day. The glue
That stuck us together. Love for each other. looks new now. It's pretty.
Thank
You're pretty. You're my pretty lady. All the way, Big Red, all the way.